Welcome back, everybody. Another episode of Talk Openly. My name's Jack. I'm here with my excellent friend Daniel, and we are Sangha friends at Lions Roar Dharma Center in Sacramento. And we're just very pleased to be back. So, hey, Daniel.
Hi, Jack. Hi, everybody out there
Hi.
in Talk Openly land.
We're going to be talking tonight, after we check in a little bit um, about sympathetic joy, or the Sanskrit word is mudita. And I'm looking forward to getting into this. It's certainly relevant to my life right now, and I'm sure for the rest of my life as well, taking joy in the joy of others. So it's going to be good tonight, Daniel.
I know it is. I know it is. There's going to be a lot to talk about for sure.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
I'm curious to see how this discussion evolves.
Yeah, yeah, we'll see. And just so you know, I'm tired, but we're doing this and it's always energizing. So, bear with me, but I'm sure we'll have fun.
Yeah, well, sometimes the tired state can be kind of nice for discussions because it sometimes enters into a little bit more of a free flowy sort of thought
Yeah.
association game, you know?
Or I kind of like let my guard down a little bit where I'm just like, F it,
Yeah,
like
let's go.
whatever. Let's just do this.
Let's
And
actually talk openly.
right. Yeah. See, that's the thing is that so we were tasked, right? The show was to be, this kind of open discussion. And, I think we've definitely done that. But we frame the conversation a little bit with a topic. Um, and so, yeah, maybe sometimes throwing in a little bit of fatigue, throwing in some spontaneity
Heck yeah.
is good for kind of going back to that dynamic of just open discussion. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we're
Yeah.
doing
We're doing it. This is it right
it.
here.
Yeah, it is. Well, tell me about your week and your training and all the things.
Yeah, yeah. So I think I mentioned this last week. There seems to be sort of like an energetic boost. I don't know if it's just whatever, bipolar, or if it's I don't know if it's the wind
Wee!
and I don't know. I don't know exactly what it is, but it feels quite positive and open and fresh and healthy. It's good stuff.
Great.
The way that it expresses itself or comes shows up is I'm back into sort of my routine of very early mornings and like kind of late, not late nights, but like pushing it, and not paying that much attention to like sleep or rest time.
Mm,
And so um usually that would set me like crashing sort of mid-afternoon or so. I haven't noticed that. I feel buoyed, and it's interesting, my early morning meditations, even if I'm kind of tired when I get to the mat or to the cushion, I'm really I'm uplifted by just the very act of meditating. I don't feel sleepy. There's no tiredness. Like I might be sort of physically tired and maybe even kind of sluggish, mentally more than usual. And yet the meditation practice is good. And I find myself kind of a little bit sad sometimes when the
mm,
meditation ends. Not sad, that's not the right word, but just sort of like, oh, I don't really want that.
yeah,
Was it's a, pleasant activity to be engaged in. And for me, it seems to work in the early mornings. So yeah, good. I
great.
just wish I had more time to do it, like 24 minutes used to feel like a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Like I felt like that was really stretched. That's the amount of time that we would do sort of in the beginning meditation group at Lions Roar. That's
Right.
the standard is 24 minutes. And a lot of times, I mean, I remember for years that felt like it was hard,
Yeah.
right? And now, sure, there are obstacles, there are challenges, there are things that I need, can certainly improve upon in my meditation practice. Um, but the time aspect of it is not, it's not even a concern anymore. It doesn't even bother
Mm-hmm.
me. Like I don't think about time other than maybe a little bit like, oh, please, I hope there's a little bit more.
Mm.
Yeah,
Wow, that seems like a really nice shift,
it is.
right? To not have that fixation, because yeah, I would agree with you. When I first started meditating, it was like so much of the session was like me thinking it, like wondering about the time,
Yeah.
like, and kind of how things moved somewhat glacially, where it was like, wait, how long is 24 minutes actually, and so in those early stages, it was, yeah, time was very much on my mind. And yeah, kind of it made it more difficult. And I have a similar experience right now with shamatez, where time is not necessarily the focus. Sometimes it comes up where I'm like, huh, I wonder, feels like maybe I'm around halfway or something like that, but there's no stress around it. Like I used to be kind of like, oh my God, do we have 12 more minutes,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
now I don't feel that way anymore. So
No.
yeah, it's good.
And the other thing is physically, I noticed that like maybe it's because I'm way more aware of what good posture feels like, but I can sort of sense the sort of the energetic differences between poor, not even poor, but less than optimal posture and the
Mm-hmm.
posture that's really working.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that helps to keep things sort of alive and like fresh somehow. Like the state of the body is oftentimes sort of related to the state of the mind, right?
Yeah.
So
Do you notice like what happens in your body when you maybe either become
yeah.
like excited or lethargic?
Well, it's interesting. What I notice is that if I'm excited or lethargic, either one of those, they're usually actually tied to the posture. And what I'll
Yeah.
notice, so for example, um, like it's weird to me. Like I said, I'll be tired, and it'll be, it's like 4:30 in the morning, and I'm like, I get and I sit down, and it'll be like a real high, like it's not anxiety or anything, but it's excitement. It's definitely like
Mm.
it's a heightened energy and that's cool, I'm okay, whatever. And then but I'll begin to do the real deep belly breathing, right? And I think I'm doing it right, and I'll notice the excite like that sort of excited energy is it's a I was thinking about it this morning actually in early meditation. I was like, oh, it's like a fire. It feels like a fire
Yeah, for
inside, like a
sure.
literal actual like whew, there it is. And
Yeah.
then when I notice that I'll sometimes be a little bit sort of slouch forward a little bit, just a little bit, or not have my knees kind of lower than my waist or something like
Mm.
that. And then I'll just correct that and then deepen down lower, get the and always just trying to get the breath a little bit deeper, a little bit deeper. And
Hmm.
when I do that, within like 3 or 4 breaths, I notice the fire just kind of not go out, but just cool down. It's not
Yeah,
so strong.
right. Yeah. No, it is amazing how
Yeah,
much the posture influences. And um, I mean, I know that that's one of the foundational kind of um cornerstones of shamatha is that like 7 point meditation posture. And so it's obviously very important, but I don't necessarily think about it too much. I'll get into my meditation posture, but I think I could be a little bit more alert to what's
yeah,
happening during the meditation with posture.
right.
So I appreciate hearing your kind of what you do and what you notice like with the excitement. So yeah,
Well,
it's
it's
helpful.
part of the meditation practice for me, especially the early stages, is
Hmm.
grounding and this real intention to come be present, be open to my senses and aware of my senses and like be here in
Mm,
my body, like that's that first sort of settling in that I have to do, like kind of check in, like I'm here, I'm present,
yeah,
it's like that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, and I'm curious, how's your everyday practice? Now that you're kind of back into a swing of training in the morning, do you notice an effect on your kind of everyday life and kind of Dharma practice during the day?
Yeah, I do. I'm glad you asked me. I hadn't actually asked myself that question. Thanks, appreciate it.
Yeah.
Um, what I notice is just my mind's not as muddy, right? Like it's calmer, it's clearer. We were talking a little bit before the show about how crazy busy, we
Yeah.
can get. And it is impressive to me, actually. I'm kind of like dumbfounded, like, wow, amazing my capacity, right?
Yeah.
And so my capacity to be present, to deal with situations as they arise, a million different things come up from every different direction. And that normally, if I'm not doing my practice, it kind of overwhelms me, freaks me out a little bit. I get really kind of the discursive thought loops start, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And I know I can notice that when if I'm off on my practice, that's the where I see it. And it makes me
Mhm.
unhappy. That it is that's a those mental characteristics are a source of suffering for me,
Yeah.
and so that's part of the reason why actually the meditation practice, on the one hand, yes, there are these long-term effects where the benefits remain, right, in post
Hmm.
meditation. But in meditation, it really is like our teacher, Lama Jinpa says about how we're just giving ourselves a time to be ourselves with ourselves, like
Mm.
and none of this persona, none of that, just be the sort of as close to our, authentic nature as possible, right?
Yeah.
And I really like that. Yeah. Anyway, I want more of it.
Yeah. I like that too. That I think he writes about that in Loving Embodied Kindness, the kind of little meditation manual that he made for the temple a while back. I think before you and I started going to the temple. But he mentioned something at the very beginning about how he wants to model that very thing to us of like, I love myself enough to just sit here and be with myself without having to do
Mm.
anything to make myself better or whatever. It's just
Yeah.
I'm just gonna sit here and be with myself. And later on in the manual, he talks about like the four wheels of the chariot. And that's kind of like, the four things that are important to be doing during meditation. And it's like you think of it in percentages. So there's like 25% is focusing on technique, 25 on relaxation. Um, I can't remember one of them, but the one that really strikes me is 25% is like, becoming your own friend.
Yeah. Yeah. He
You
talks about that
know,
a lot. Yeah.
I think that one is so sweet. It's like, oh, so because so much of my meditation practice, I really am very focused on technique. And then I think it winds me up a little bit. And so to remember that like half of the meditation is to like relax as well as, be kind to myself.
Yeah.
And so that I really have to remember because I've talked many times on the show about how I do lean towards the, excited, anxious side of meditation. Um, and so it probably makes sense that I would want to turn down maybe the emphasis that I put on technique a little bit and turn up the kind of like kindness and um, uh, relaxation and
Mhm.
whatnot.
I think
So,
there's a feeling of self-indulgence there. There's a feeling
right,
of like, wait, I'm supposed to be doing, and
right,
that's the technique sort of thing. That's that focus, right? Whereas that other aspect of it is so important, right? Like
yeah,
this self-love, this gentleness, this kindness, this presence with ourselves. And it's interesting too, we talk a lot about, no self, right? But Buddhism really is about self-love. It's just not
yeah,
for the misperceived self.
right, right, and not just for yourself, like
That's what I
all
mean. Like
beings and
there's a
yeah,
recognition that what there is no self, and what that means is
yeah, yeah,
everyone, all things, the
right,
whole thing.
right,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, it is. It is. Well, tell me a
Uh,
little bit about you. What about how's life, practice, all that? You got
yeah.
some heavy stuff going on in your life.
I do. Well, and it's lightened up a little bit. For those who maybe haven't been listening for the last few times, my partner and I have like opened up our relationship again, and he's dating, which is something new for me. I've dated in our relationship, but he hasn't. And so I've been working a lot. We'll say working a lot rather than like freaking out. I've been working a lot with jealousy and self-esteem and oh, all different kinds of things, you know. Um, but I think I'm finding a little bit of peace in recognizing that yeah, the reality that things change. That one is just really, I keep coming back to that. And so that means that I'm changing as well. And it's not always going to feel this way. Um, and also that I can change my attitude um, around this and, you know, focus more on like, well, why did I want to do this in the first place? You know, focusing on the positives rather than on like the negatives or the difficult things. Um, so that's what I've been kind of directing my mind that way. But what I noticed with meditation, in this time of my life is like there's times where I could spend the whole meditation just thinking and planning and preparing and having conversations in my mind. But there will be these moments of kind of clarity where I'll notice what I'm doing. And it's almost humorous. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, oh, look at all this me, right? Look at all this storyline, all this narrative. And all this like unnecessary suffering, you know, like there's of course the suffering of samsara, which is inevitable, and you know, uh we can't get away from old age, sickness, and death, right? Or aging, sickness, and death. And so to see like, wow, I'm really, you know, I'm cultivating fear and jealousy when I could be focusing on the fact that change happens. I am going to die, and that, you know, this life is so meaningful. And so it's pointless to focus on these things that are just manufactured, really, in my
Hmm.
mind. And not to say that they're meaningless, right, or that I should ignore them or whatever, but just that the stories that I'm telling myself are not helping me. They're not realistic, and also they're not the thing that I want to be focusing on, which is, you know, my training and the dharma. So um it's been such a good teacher. This whole
Yeah.
time in my life is such a good teacher. um and yeah, I would say my meditation has started to become a little bit more there's been a little bit more clarity than maybe the last few weeks. But even then, you know, I was able to have these moments, right?
Yeah.
um I've started doing my meditation in the morning again rather than waiting to do it later in the day. Um, because that's definitely like a sign of depression for me. Like
Yep.
if I'm not getting up in time to do
Uh-huh.
my
Yep.
meditation, it's like, okay, yeah, that's something. Because I'll just be like, oh, I'm so tired. Like I need half hour more of sleep, right? Which is like when I really think of it, when I think of it later
Yeah.
in the day, I'm like, that half an hour did not help anything,
Yeah.
you know, and it maybe even made me more groggy, right?
Not only that, Jack, but I'm so there with you.
Yeah.
Like I know that is when I'm depressed, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Not that there's anything wrong with meditating at other times of the day. Of course, meditate
Right,
whenever,
right.
it's all good. It's just that it seems to be one of those things that for many people it's really helpful to do the very first thing. Even if
Yeah.
you even if you do a short one and then do others later in the day, that's all good. But there's something about that morning meditation that's pretty darn special. So
Yeah,
yeah,
for
I'm
sure.
with you on that one. I sense when it's off. It's because
Yeah,
I'm missing that.
definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah, and even like if I don't get up in time for like a 24-minute sit, I'll still do like the prayers and
yeah,
stuff to get my day started.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, there is something about just like, okay, I know I'm gonna just kind of drop all this
yeah,
and like you said, be with myself.
yeah.
So yeah, what a good way to start the day. right?
For sure, absolutely. There was something
And
else you asked me, but
I was just
Mm.
gonna say, like, I was just thinking about like looking back, like let's say like 6, 7 years ago. I think if I could see myself now, I'd be like, oh my God,
Right.
that's
Yeah.
crazy. Like you get up
Yeah.
at 5 in the morning to meditate and like you're in an open relationship and it's like basically okay and you're a therapist. Like what? You know?
I thought you were
Um,
going to say something different.
oh,
I thought you were going to point to the, like, wow, what a badass.
exactly. No, that's what I'm
Oh, it
saying.
is.
Yeah.
Okay,
So like,
good, good,
whoa,
good.
you're doing all that.
Oh,
Like, who are
yeah.
you? Like,
Yeah,
that's
okay. Yeah,
crazy.
exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Isn't that it's, I think that when we begin to kind of slack a little bit and take things for granted and think that we know things, whatever, when things start to kind of like, I don't know, like kind of fall off, it's really like one of the best sort of meditations that we could do is just to stop and think about what old you even a year or two ago would think about how you are now. When I reflect on that, it'll bring me to tears.
Yeah.
Where I'm just like I'm so moved. I'm like, "Oh my God, like really?
Yeah.
Like holy
Yeah.
shit. I was in a lot of pain." And I didn't
Right.
even know it. I just thought that was like, like that's just how it is. I didn't even, I was, yeah, I recognize some of it, but now with the release of a lot of that, right? There are
Yeah.
not so many of those secondary arrows coming in. I'm not stabbing myself with as many of them, right? And the
Right.
relief from that is immense. And whenever I start
Mm,
to take the Dharma for granted, or I take my teacher for granted, or any of this for granted, that thought will bring me back where I'm like, oh, whoa, this is so precious. This is like the
yeah.
most precious thing I've ever found in my life, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'll kind of notice like where my everyday life will become a little bit more solid in some way. Like that will feel like the reality, and then Dharma will kind of feel like this, like, okay, yeah, it's there, but it's a little bit less real to me. There's some way
Yeah.
that it's a little bit more mythical or something, or it's like,
Ah,
maybe I don't feel like it's practical, and then yeah, it'll be like these moments where it's like, hey, wait a minute, like, no, like this is the illusory part, right?
right. Yeah.
And getting that insight again, it's just such like a heavy dose of medicine, or maybe not heavy, but like this,
Yeah.
just like it's kind of shocking in a way, in a
It
good
is,
way, right?
that it's interesting. I wish that you had the opportunity to drop into the actual, Lions Road Dharma Center in Sacramento when you felt
Mm,
like it. Because
I know,
sometimes
me
what'll
too.
happen is those depression cycles, or when I sort of fall off of it for a little bit, sometimes it's just that everything's kind of off and I'm busy and I'll like somehow not be able to make it there for anything, right? And so there will be a gap of say like 2 weeks, right? Where like
Hmm.
I don't go. I'm not unable to make it for whatever reason. I always go on Monday mornings for to do the 21 praises to Tara. That's like, but I
Nice.
don't that doesn't that's something different, I think. But I had this experience the other day where it was exactly this where I was like, kind of off and not feeling so good or whatever. And I kind of was like, I don't think I have it in me even to go. I want to just relax and chill. Like I have
Mm,
time now. There's a little bit of a break. And this whole like, oh yeah, I'm gonna just take some downtime. And I thought, well, there's no greater downtime than listening to a Dharma talk, right? And it was our
yeah.
friend Matthew who was talking. And it was the coolest experience. I went in and I was just sort of like, yeah, okay, I want to be here to support my friend, and it's a good place to be. And then I felt so uplifted, so buoyed, so happy that I went,
Yeah.
right? And it was such a good everything, the interactions, the talk, everything about it. I felt so much better. If I had like stayed home and hung out and whatever, surfed Reddit or whatever the dumb, stupid thing.
Right.
Like I would have felt more tired. I would have felt more sort of depressed. And I
Yeah.
wanted to, I remember what it was that I wanted to say earlier. It had to do with the whole waking up early thing to meditate. I have a sneaking suspicion that uh that meditation is a form of like active rest.
Yeah,
So like
absolutely.
it so I think that I've noticed anyway that what I'm looking for from rest is more energy because when I'm lethargic and tired and unrested, then I feel like low energy. And
Hmm.
what I notice is that Dharma practice lifts my energy. I
Yeah,
feel energized. My capacity increases, right?
right, right,
So if I give myself, I'm like, okay, no, I'm gonna wake up. It doesn't matter, even it doesn't matter what time it is right now. Whatever time I think I should wake up tomorrow, I'm gonna wake up early and early enough to do my meditation practice. And never, not once has that been a mistake.
right. Yeah, no, I can't think of any time it's been a mistake. It's
No,
just never,
never. And you never
ever.
feel afterward like, "Ah, I should have just stayed in bed."
Right. Yeah. Oh my gosh. You're spot on with that one. Hmm. Funny
Mm.
brains we have. I
Indeed,
wish that
indeed.
they weren't so self defeating.
Oh,
Uh,
well,
or
that's the
maybe if
quote.
they could be more self-defeating, right? More self
Oh, yeah.
the
Well,
misrepresented self-defeating.
yeah. Maybe that's why Mara is not necessarily an enemy, you know?
Oh yeah.
Uh,
So say more.
Well, in that sense, that the obstacles, challenges, hardships, temptations, and
I
all of
see what you're
that,
saying. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
giving us some food, something to practice with.
Yeah, some resistance, right?
I mean, there you go. Well, you can't climb
Yeah,
up without resistance. That's what my teacher says.
yeah, right. Oh, good. Well, we got to do some mind training, don't we?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we
We got
do.
to work with some resistance.
I have the random Lojong slogan generator page pulled up, and I'm going to share it right now.
You know, I learned something the other day about another, it's not random, but there's a Lojong slogan blog by Judy Leaf.
Oh, yeah.
She's a pretty well-known teacher, and she has a great blog on the Lojong slogan. So I definitely recommend that. And you can
She's a
kind of follow
really
along.
good. Yeah, she's another one of Trungpa. She was one of his lead students,
That's
right?
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I love yeah, her website is great. Judy
yeah.
Lee. Yeah. All right. Let me push the button here.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
This is a good one. This is
yeah.
a sweet one. Good reminder. 25, don't talk about others' weak points. So this states you should never speak of others' defects, neither their worldly defects, for instance, by calling them that blind person, nor their spiritual defects, for instance, by calling them that morally degenerate person. And yeah, that was from a commentary on the 7 point mind training. Um, yeah, this one's it feels kind of classic, right? You know, this is something that maybe all of the religions talk about, right? Just um don't hurt other people with your words. Don't talk
Yeah.
about other people. Don't gossip. Um
Even I would say I would say don't talk or even think about, right? Like
yeah, like why
don't
ruminate on
waste
that?
your time and your why would you like
Right.
you
'Cause what
don't
is
even
that?
know. You don't
Yeah.
even know. You're just making shit up.
Right. And you know, I don't know if we were to think like when we talk about other people's weak points, like what am I doing there? Like what am I thinking I'm getting out of that? And sometimes it's like, you know, there's some humor, right? Like putting down someone else in kind of like a dark humor way, or not even dark humor, but like just kind of slapstick or, you know, whatever. Um, and so there's always an element of kind of like being above someone, you know, because then even not just humor but talking about someone in a negative way, pointing out their flaws, um that is kind of a way of me being like, okay, and yeah, I don't do that, or like, you know, I'm better than that, right?
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't in the same sentence say what my flaws were. Even now I do. Now that I practice Dharma, I do that a lot more. Um, but yeah, there's kind of this always feeling of like better than, holier than thou, that kind of thing. How about you? How does it show up for you?
How does it show up for me? I think it's primarily, I mean, I don't think I tend not to talk too much about other people. I, I don't know. I don't think it's like a big thing, but I do
Yeah,
have a lot of thoughts around it, and I do believe that my language still reflects that thought pattern, that sort of like, oh yeah, I'm better than them this way or that way or whatever. But I don't think that I'm like necessarily like so direct about it, right? I might,
yeah,
I think so. I do, in fact, there is that sort of judgment of other people and their activities. But generally speaking, I think, yeah, I'm gonna have to reflect on this one. I don't think that it doesn't show up all that much.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I do have a decent amount of judgment of other people, but I think I'm doing all right with the mindfulness around it.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
I
I'm
think
happy with this.
nice. Yeah, I have to be cautious because I notice in some of my friendships or relationships, I've had the tendency where we'll just like talk about our other friends, or we'll talk about drama, right, in people's lives. And so I've had to become a lot more mindful of that. Um, and because, sometimes it's just like entertainment, talking about the people, I don't know, that's how like
Well,
my
you see,
experience
that's the
is.
thing is I don't I think there's like I want to just clarify that whole not talking about other people's weak points, that's not like a huge thing for me. I think that it's still, it's like it's still somehow like shows up, and it's not, and that my the reason why it's not like a huge thing for me is that I don't talk about people to other people all that much. Like
Yeah.
I generally am, but that's because I'm kind of uninterested myself. You know what I mean? Like to me, like people like talking about another person who's not there, it just like not interesting. Like it doesn't
Totally.
like I don't care,
I
right?
think there might be an element of like gender too. Like I think the way that, girls and women are kind of raised is that, yeah, we talk about our friends, we talk about people, we talk about
Yeah,
drama. And
you
of course,
know,
that's a very broad strokes, right? But
you're right.
I could see that for sure.
Yeah, but I don't think that this not caring about other people is healthy either, right? I
No,
have
no,
I have to
no.
force myself. I got into a little bit of trouble. In a conversation with my partner where I was like, yeah, like she was asking me, she's like, why do you, when we're with my family, we all notice that at some point in the conversation, you have a tendency to just like disappear. Like you just
Oh
kind of
yeah.
get up and leave, you know? And
You'll actually leave.
yeah, yeah, I do, you know. And I didn't think anything weird about it. I was like, well, you guys are hanging out and having a good time talking about people. And
Yeah,
it's boring as all get out to
yeah.
me. Like I tried to be like sitting there smiling and stuff, but I don't care. I don't care about
Yeah,
those people. I don't care about what your thoughts are about those people or
totally.
what they're up to. Like doesn't even doesn't not at all, right? Like my family in Iceland, this is crazy. These people get together every day, it seems like multiple, my whole like
Wow.
my grandma, my aunts and uncles, and they sit around and just talk about people. And I'm
Yeah.
oh, that is like the worst. Like to me, humans are like the least interesting thing out there.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I'll talk about all kinds of stuff, right? Like,
yeah.
but not that. Ugh.
That's so funny. Hey, that's good. I don't think that means that you don't care about people, Maybe there's, uh I don't know, maybe you know more about yourself than I do, right? But like I don't see that as being like uncaring about people. It just seems like that's not something you're interested in, like
Yeah, that's
focusing on,
right. It
you know?
truly is. Like I have to, I'm actually practicing now staying put for the conversation, right? Because when I flee the conversation, it's usually I'm like, well, I'm done. There's something more interesting. But that's actually, I need to stay present, right? It's a
Mm,
good practice for me to not try to make myself more comfortable by alleviating this boredom. And
Sure.
I also don't want to check out and just be sitting there sort of spaced out, in my own little world. And so I am practicing staying present for the conversations about other people and just kind of seeing what that's like. So it's new to me. I'll report back to you,
Yeah.
but yeah, I just wanted to say it wasn't some kind of a moral thing on
Yeah,
my
yeah, yeah.
trying to like say I'm good. That's something amazing. I just not my in.
Totally. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool. Hey, Shakyamuni.
Look at him, Mall of
Looking
Mara's
good.
forces.
Oh yeah, huh? We look I think we saw this one time and there was a dog, right? Or was that some other
I think that there's more than one.
there's
Dirk put
more
this
than one.
together, and this particular subject matter is of keen interest to him. And so I think he may have more than one of these. I know he has more than one of these temptation images in here.
Cool. Yeah, great.
Uh,
This the one with the ladies?
yeah, we got the ladies there. I think those are Mara's daughters. So beautiful, tempting.
Ladies.
All right.
Hmm. Great. Well, this has been a really helpful discussion so far for
Yay,
me.
me too.
So let's pivot a little bit to mudita, sympathetic joy. Um, my the Dharma name that I was given when I took refuge in 2019 with Lama Gempa. So the name that he gave me was Yeshi Laki, and that means goddess of joy.
Yeah,
And at first I was like, sweet, like I must be pretty cool, right?
that's right.
But then, as time went on, I kind of learned from some, other people in the Sangha that a lot of times your Dharma name is something really that you should be working on. That's kind of like maybe the the quality that needs some cultivation. And as I started to think about that, I was like, okay, maybe this is about like depression, like that I need to kind of, bring more joy into my life because I struggle with depression. Um, but lately I've been really reflecting, and it's not solely because of this recent experience with polyamory. This definitely plays a big part into why I'm thinking about it right now. But over the last couple years, especially, I've been really recognizing just how selfish I am, like
Mm,
really self-centered. Um, to the point where like I'll forget something that someone says within like minutes. And I don't think that it's like, sure, like maybe there's some ADHD concentration stuff going on,
yeah,
but I think it's also just because like sometimes I just don't really care.
yeah.
Like I just don't really, I'm just like, I'm
That's why
doing
you're
what
not
I'm doing.
present. If you cared, you'd be present.
Right, right, exactly. So I've been, just reflecting on that for the last couple of years and like noticing like how do I show up in my friendships? How do I show up in my relationships with family, partners, and whatnot? Um, and I think that's a big part of what this joy aspect is. So not necessarily bringing joy into my life because of depression, but sending joy, expanding joy out to others.
Oh, you think they're
Um,
different?
what's that?
You think
And
those are
to
different things?
myself. No, no,
Huh?
no. I know that it's for myself too. But the way that I was focusing on it at first was that it's about me. Like I've got to be more joyful, right? Like, it was still very self-centered. And so I wasn't thinking about how actually, well, why be joyful? Like what the whole point of it is that we share it with others. Um, so yes, mudita, sympathetic joy. This is what I really need to cultivate in this lifetime.
Yeah. Mudita is bonita.
Mudita is mudita is bonita.
No.
No.
Well, I think that's the so mudita is not a it's joy, but it's not just it's not an emotional like experience necessarily. It's a practice,
It's a practice.
right?
Absolutely.
it's
take
so
the
it's something
effort.
that you're doing actively engaged in and you get better at as you train, and it's a form of mind training, right?
Right.
And of the Brahma Viharas, it's there's four, right? So of the four Brahma Viharas, it's the third one, sympathetic joy. Some people say empathetic joy. I don't really,
Right. Yeah.
it's a little confusing. But I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to read you something about
Mm.
this. I think that you'll appreciate. Let me just pull it up here real quick. It was a it was a quote that I found really insightful. Hopefully this is it. Ah, yes. Okay. So this quote is from Sharon Salzberg, from a book called Loving Kindness, The Revolutionary Art of Happiness.
Mm.
And she says, so much of our unhappy condition as living beings comes from the constricting effect of our negativity toward each other. We limit ourselves and we limit others. We judge each other, compare ourselves to each other, demean and envy each other, and we ourselves suffer the strangling effects of these limitations. Because there are so many constricting mind states that are impediments to mudita, sympathetic joy is considered the most difficult of
Huh.
all the Brahmaviharas to develop. But so potent is this quality that expressing it can defeat the aversion and attachment that bind us.
Wow. So wait, can you repeat why is it the most difficult?
Because there are so many constricting mind states that are impediments.
Ah, yeah, so like envy, jealousy, um, pride,
Yes.
kind of wanting to accumulate for
Yeah.
ourselves.
Envy,
Yeah,
miserliness, jealousy,
miserliness, yeah,
scorn, mockery, competitiveness, bitterness,
right.
outrage, malaise. Yes.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah.
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 There are so many impediments.
Right.
Damn. Okay, but to know how potent it is to develop that, it can really transform our lives and
Yeah.
how we relate to others. Yeah.
Yeah. And think about it too, how it relates to the paramita of generosity, right?
Hmm.
That
Hmm.
it is the giving up of a lot of us, right, for the benefit of others, right? And the
Yeah.
crazy thing, as we were talking, just kind of alluding to a while ago, is that this practice ultimately leads to our own joyous experience.
Right. Right. I know we get in our own way so terribly. And,
Yeah,
I think a lot of my mindset sometimes is kind of this subconscious, like zero sum game that I'm kind
that's
of
right.
calculating,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Where I'm like, if I am happy that someone else is having what I want, that means that I have less of it, right? That they're
right.
somehow taking that from
Yeah,
me.
that's right.
Um, and it doesn't, when I really look at it, it doesn't play out that
Yeah,
way.
is happiness a scarce resource?
Right. That is, and love and joy,
Right.
like are those
Is there a
finite
limit to that?
resources?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
Um,
mom just had the seventh baby. She's all out of love for her children.
right, right,
Can't happen. There's not enough of
exactly.
it.
Yeah, yeah. So that's such a important reminder for me is that like there's nothing being taken away from me by someone else being happy with something that I would also like to have in my life,
Yeah.
right?
In some
Um,
cases, when you did have it, you were totally happy, right? Like you experienced that, and that was great. And you didn't feel jealousy or envy or any of those things when you were enjoying the good things, whatever those were. But then somebody else gets it, and you're like, I wish that was me. What about
yeah,
me?
right, 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 right. Yeah, yeah, it's so funny. Um, I did see that this kind of sympathetic joy is almost like a companion to compassion, one of the other Brahma Viharas,
Oh,
because compassion is very much focused on others suffering and our own suffering, whereas sympathetic joy is focused on the happiness of others and ourselves, and so it's kind of like this almost balancing point where we can't just focus on suffering. We also, in order to balance that out, we need to also focus on happiness and joy. And I found that really interesting, and maybe a little bit of antidote to that suffering of jealousy is like, hey, wait a minute, I need to balance this out, right? I can't just be focusing on the difficulties and how I'm screwing up and how I'm, like not living up to my values, but like, hey, how am I, practicing the Dharma, and how am I kind of living in my values, like focusing on that kind of joyful aspect. And then of course, extending it to others. But I just found that interesting that it was like those were kind of companion Brahma Viharas.
Yeah, and it's funny when you said it, my first reaction was to think, well, what about the relationship to towards loving kindness and equanimity? And actually none of the separation, the distinction between the four is there is none.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's
for
all
sure.
one thing. Like sure, we have to use language and concepts and lists to talk about different characteristics because that's just the nature of language.
Yeah.
But the Brahma Viharas are not different things.
Right. You can't have one without the other,
No,
for
no.
sure.
They all support
Yeah,
one another. It's all connected.
right. Everything's so balanced in the Dharma. I just find like incredible the way the categorization of things, and um we really have incredible teachers, like just brilliant teachers in this lineage that wow, I just feel very fortunate
Hmm,
um to be, yeah, a recipient.
indeed.
But yeah, I think maybe this kind of cultivating joy is such a I don't know, it's like training in abundance. Um, I really like that word, like abundance versus scarcity.
Yeah.
Um, so I do tend to have that scarcity mindset.
Same,
Um,
same. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, identical. Yeah, couldn't agree more. I mean, like that I wish I want to have an abundance mindset.
yeah,
I
me
want
too.
that. And sometimes it kind of shows up a little bit, but man, there's a lot of conditioning in scarcity mindset, right? Like our culture especially, right?
Yeah,
This
for sure.
zero sum game, that BS is perpetuated by the system. It's
Yeah,
like that's it's
big
the way our
time.
economy works. It's the
Yeah,
way our
absolutely.
culture is. And
Yeah,
so I
get
think of the
everything for yourself as soon as possible.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I sent you. It was interesting. I saw a text where they were talking about the evolutionary sort of like the possible evolutionary history of like monogamy, right? And how it has to that itself has to do with scarcity, and
Totally. Yeah,
that it appears to have shown up as a way of guaranteeing access to resources, right? And kind of locking it down. Like, yeah, you limit yourself, but you lock it down so you at least always have a little bit of something.
totally. Yeah, that's so funny. Like, here's my little corner that's mine.
That's right. That's right. And it's root. And so I thought that was kind of an interesting take that monogamy itself is you sort of possibly this, there's this powerful relationship between that form of coupling or relationships or whatever and scarcity mindset.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, the
Yeah.
thing
I
is,
mean,
that's the
mhm.
weird thing about it, Jack, is like we have always had everything that we need. And when we engage in these practices, what we begin to realize is all those things that we thought were lacking, connection, meaning, all love, all this good stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's there. It's there for the
Yeah.
taking, right? Like it doesn't even have to be taken. It's already here. It couldn't be
It's just
not here,
here.
right? It's
Yeah.
just that we
Yeah.
cover it all up.
Right. Well, and as you were saying that, I was thinking about how um Lama often says about, the about Buddha nature and kind of Buddha qualities, that yes, we all have them, but we don't own any of it.
No, they're not
We don't
personal.
own any
They're
of
not
it.
ours.
Yeah, they're not personal. And so then taking that down to like our regular kind of conventional level lives too. Like I don't own this body, right? Like this body, I'm kind of just like renting, right, for this lifetime.
Yeah,
And I don't own my partner. I don't own my cat. You
right,
know, we're all in relationship, right?
right,
So
right.
much different than ownership.
I,
And yeah,
I asked Lama one time about, the six session guru yoga.
yeah.
I asked him one time, I said, what does this mean? Land, body, and wealth, and all virtues collected, for the sake of all mothers, I gladly release.
Mm.
What does that mean? You know? And he said, you recognize that you've borrowed all of this, that
Yeah.
none of it belongs to you. You let it go
Mm.
because it wasn't yours. So you reduce. Anyway, I thought,
Yeah.
I thought that was a powerful insight for me, and it really
Yeah.
helped me with that particular practice.
That is really powerful. And you know, I think that that definitely seems like a practice in joy, right? It's like being able to recognize the impermanence and to joyfully just kind of offer it back, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Or offer it to someone else.
yeah.
And uh yeah, I love that. Land, body, and wealth, and all virtues collected for the sake of all mothers, I gladly release. Um, yeah, that's a beautiful passage.
I every time that I say that it really actually feels like a release. Because in the beginning, when I first saw it, I was like, it felt like, oh, I'm having to, like, I'm giving up. It's mine, and I have to like sacrifice it or give it up, right?
Totally.
And then Llama's like, nah, man, it never was yours.
Yeah, it never was. And so then maybe that's like that's such a helpful mindset for cultivating joy.
Yeah,
Working a little bit with the afflictions that I still have is like, why would I be jealous of something that someone else has that they don't even really own? Like knowing that none of us
right,
own any of this, none of us control it. Like, why would I be envious of someone,
right.
knowing that at some point they will also have to part with that thing, you know? Like, why wouldn't I just be happy that they have it right now?
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I was thinking about something, I think maybe a little bit kind of related earlier. That I think that one of the things that happens is when we feel envy or jealousy, or there's this comparison, or there's uh this sort of lack that's going on, we tend to focus, at least I do, I tend to focus on objects, like, oh, my ex is with a new partner or whatever, right? And I think about the nature of, like, the actual, like, oh, the people together, like they have each other, right?
yeah, yeah,
The poor example, but I think about the objects, and the point is that it's not at least for me anyway, and for most people, it's not about that, right? So a better example might be something like sex, right? Where you're like, yeah, yeah, I want to have sex, and they're having sex, and I'm not having sex,
yeah,
and that feels bad. But then if you stop and you're like, well, what is it? What does that mean to me? Well, it means connection, it means desire, it means
yeah,
intimacy, it means love, it means that's what that means to me. It's actually something else. It's not the object, it's not the action, it's not that, right?
mm,
And I feel like separating the two and recognizing, like, that actually this is all of us striving for happiness, right?
yeah,
Like, that's good. We want
yeah,
that. I mean, sometimes
yeah.
it doesn't quite work out. We can see that it's not a good idea, but still, that's striving.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. So anytime, yeah, just looking at like my own mind process with it. Yeah. What am I actually trying to, like, what would I get out of having that thing? Right. Or maybe also a good thing to think about is like, what would I actually get if I could even take that from that person?
Oh
Take it
yeah, that's a
away,
good one.
right?
Right.
Take it for myself. Like, would that actually make me happy?
Would I want that?
Would
Oh
I want
gosh.
that?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, and like and going back to kind of polyamory is that, I have heard of relationships where someone is like in a primary relationship and they'll have what's called like veto power over their partner's other relationships where they can
And
actually just end another one of their partner's relationships. And it was like, what do you actually get out of that? There's like this false sense of security maybe for a little bit, but man, that just sounds like it creates a lot of badness, a lot of, I don't know, ickiness, I would
yeah,
think.
but here's my sense, right? Coming full loop back to our meditation. When we're
Yeah,
sitting there in the non-conceptual mind, we get some awareness of that, right? And there's a relief from the conceptual mind aspect of it. It helps us to see, I think, at least it feels this way to me, that all of that, those are all games that people are playing, these
yeah,
conceptual games, these rules, these whatever. Of course, yeah, they're everybody's striving for their happiness. They create these concepts, they try to live by them to see if maybe that brings them some happiness. Ultimately, because it's samsaric and false, it falls apart. And
yeah,
so it's all this sort of like, oh yeah, you too, chasing after the wind. Me too. I
totally.
do it in my way, you do it in your way. All right.
Yep. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it goes back to that just loving kindness. Can I have some loving kindness and seeing that, yeah, we're just grasping, just grasping all the time, and maybe um I can just feel some goodness around like, oh, that person feels okay right now,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that's really nice, that's a good
yeah,
thing, yeah. Or that
absolutely.
that person got what they wanted, yeah. Why wouldn't I be
Yeah,
happy about
yeah.
that?
Although,
Yeah,
I think there's some cautionary, there's some advice to have some caution around it, to not use it as a form of spiritual bypassing, and to
totally,
also
yeah,
not, and to recognize that our feelings and our boundaries and everything are really important. Sometimes
absolutely,
jealousy is actually a powerful, energetic dashlight that's pointing to something is wrong.
yeah,
Doesn't
right,
always mean that, but pay it. We're not trying to say that doesn't that you should just override all of
right, don't,
your
yeah, to not listen.
emotions and
Hmm.
your feelings and everything. Just like, oh well, I'm happy for them. I'm happy for them. I'm happy for them.
Right.
No, that's not
Yeah,
how.
that'd be some serious bypassing. Yeah. No, gotta feel your feelings. And it's even more powerful to feel your feelings and still, try to cultivate joy.
Oh, yeah,
Like, man, even in the midst of all this crap I'm feeling, I really want to feel happy for that person.
that's right.
I think that's it. That's just like, the balance, that
That's
we were talking
love,
about.
Jack. That's
That is
love.
love. Yeah. And it's self-love too, to say
That's
like,
right.
oh yeah,
Mm.
these feelings are here.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
I'll make some space for them.
Yep.
I'll create a
Yeah.
big open pasture for them to roam.
I love that. That's sweet. I like imagining that. I was imagining like little like cartoon sheep and cows and stuff. I
Yeah,
like that.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. My pleasure.
Daniel, thank you. It's been a really nice conversation. Yeah, I always feel like I learned something, and I value our time together.
Me
So thank
too, so
you.
much, Jack. I hope that you'll give us a report back on how your sympathetic joy has only increased and not diminished next
We'll
week.
see. Yeah, we'll see how it
Yeah,
goes.
that's my hope for you.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. And if you're able to make a donation, lionsroaddharmacenter.org, we'd super appreciate it.
Yeah, we would.
All right,
Bye.
bye.